Good morning, everybody. This is the news that we are waking up to for Friday, May the 2nd, day 1164 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, coming to you from this major European capital currently under siege, the city of Kyiv. Now, last night, the Russians made some noise. 150 drones last night. Of the 150, 64 were shot down, 62 taken out with active countermeasures. That's 126 out of 150. That's an 84% interception rate. Good on the air defense forces. Now, somebody last night asked on the live, what is Putin going to say about the minerals deal? And last night, it seemed like Russian propagandists were trying to figure it out, right? On the one hand, they were saying, oh, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. And then on the other hand, they were saying, this is an unthinkable escalation. I mean, so they weren't quite clear. They hadn't been given their orders yet. Well, apparently, Putin is unhappy. Zelensky's demonic forces poisoned Trump. U.S. president's behavior has changed dramatically. So now the Russian people have to believe the lie that Trump is not a mercurial opportunist who cannot be trusted at all, but rather he has been subverted by Zelensky's demonic forces. I mean, it's got to be hard to be a Russian. That's for sure. Now, one of the things, of course, that Putin is pissed about is that the U.S. minerals deal with Ukraine is all good news for Ukraine, as well as it should be, right? They got to keep their subsurface rights. They are putting 50% of all of their licenses into a fund to reconstruct Ukraine. Curiously, in other Russian publications yesterday, reconstruction fund was in quotes, right? As if it wasn't reconstruction from all the damage the Russians have done. That's what the fucking fund is for. No, they had it in quotes, reconstruction. So here's the deal with the minerals deal. It looks like a decent deal from everything that I see. And these are some quotes from people in the Ukrainian government. It's a government-to-government document. It's the starting point on establishing the fund. The other parts of the deal will be about the routine parts of the fund. Ukraine's trade representative and deputy economic minister Taras Kachka said in reply to Kyiv Post questions during a press briefing on this week. Now, the guy who's really in charge is Sobolev, Ukraine's deputy minister of economy, Oleksiy Sobolev. He was part of this joint interview with the press yesterday. And I have some good quotes from him. The big one here validates my understanding, as we went through it last night on the live, of how the fund will work. The fund works basically as a portfolio manager. So the state here in Ukraine owns subsurface rights to rare earth deposits of things like lithium and praseodymium and neodymium and etc., right? The things you need that are so rare on Earth, but you need for a high-tech economy. Powers microchips, powers batteries, powers lasers, etc. Now, as I understand it, and that seems to be borne out by the facts disclosed by the economy ministers in this interview, Ukraine will sell licenses and American companies get preferential treatment in those negotiations. So America's got first dibs on everything. That's basically what it comes down to. Ukraine says, hey, we got a lithium mine over here. Who wants it? And then investors put forth their propositions, right? Now, the fund sells that license, usually for a stake in what gets produced by the mine. So let's say 20%. If the fund decides we want a 20% stake and the parties agree, the company can gather capital. At that time, the company is free to explore other options with other partners on the conditions which are not materially worse than those presented to the fund. So that is to say, there's competition in the bidding process. Not only what percentage of the take are you willing to part with, but how many Ukrainians are you going to employ? What are you going to pay them? What does your investment in the country look like in terms of, are you just going to strip mine it and leave it barren? Or do you have a reclamation plan? And how do you fund the reclamation plans? All those kinds of things go into the bidding. Legitimately, Americans get first dibs. If their bids are as good as anybody else's bids, they're going to get the contract. For other foreign companies will have to make more material benefits available to Ukraine as part of their bidding process in order to beat out the Americans. And then, of course, my guess is the Americans would have a chance to match those terms and conditions. That would be my guess. This way, Ukraine can leverage the investments, creating a win-win situation for all sides. Exactly. To me, that right there is the hallmark of what American business should be. There is plenty to go around. Maybe my vision of this is colored by years in the Microsoft Corporation. Because in the Microsoft Corporation, we fostered an atmosphere of co-opetition, what we called co-opetition, especially among our partner channels. So you have dozens and dozens and dozens of companies out there who make their whole living selling Microsoft software. So how do you work with them all so that they all make the most money they can? Co-opetition, as we call it. Right? So I am colored by this history of living my life for win-wins, where everybody wins. I don't understand these zero-sum players, these people like Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, who believe fundamentally that for them to win, someone else must lose. That's not competition. That's predation. These people are predatory in their whole outlook on life. And their view of the human species where we are all just commodities to be bought and sold, rather than equal members of an independent and sovereign self, must be challenged at every turn. Ukraine will put 50% of the future net profits, that should be net, sorry about that, from future licenses of future extractions into the fund. So there's a commitment from Ukraine to invest the licensure of its rare earth minerals mining deals into a fund for reconstruction, a fund which the U.S. can contribute to and get a stake in the earnings of those future deals. But all the money for the first 10 years stays in Ukraine. The Ukrainian, as far as I can tell, the Ukrainians stuck to their guns and certainly didn't take the exploitive, neo-colonial economic coercion that the first couple versions of the deal were riddled with, and that should have been rejected. And in the end, they were. That whole White House fiasco Trump pulled might have been the best thing for Ukraine so far. Now, here's what's been the worst thing for Ukraine so far. Talking bullshit. And the link to the whole Kyiv Post article is there. It's a decent post worth reading. But to sum it up, May 8th and November 11th are commonly celebrated. May 8th as the victory in Europe, and November 11th as the what we used to call Armistice Day, which today we call Veterans Day, the end of World War I. Now, Trump wants to, now first of all, May 8th is a holiday in the United States. Very often it's Mother's Day, right? Somewhere usually between May 8th and May 11th is Mother's Day. So Trump wants us to forget about the love we have for our mothers and make this the love we have for dear leader, right? Victory Day, right? Patriotism, flags and stuff. And then November 11th, fucking Veterans Day, he wants us to forget the men and women who sacrificed for the win and instead just remember the glory of the win. This is what they do in autocratic nations. They replace the people with the state. Trump wants to take away the faith, the love, the cherish that we have for our mothers and our fathers and grandfathers and replace it with obseisance to him and his new corporate oligarchy wrapped up in an American flag and a Bible. Now, he did say something that was almost reasonable if only I could believe he meant it. Watch his eyes when he says this. Watch.
I would tell Zelensky, no more. You got to make a deal. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give them a lot. We're going to give more than they ever got if we have to.
Now, did you notice? I'll even play it again because I think it's very clear. When he says he's going to tell Zelensky, yeah, that's what he's going to tell Zelensky. But then he says he's going to tell it to Putin. And watch how all the muscles in his face tighten up and his eyes go sideways. Watch.
I would tell Zelensky, no more. You got to make a deal. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give them a lot. We're going to give more than they ever got if we have to.
I don't believe a word of it. He's saying the right things, but I do not believe him for a second. I'm going to have to see some evidence. I'm going to have to see some sanctions on Russia from this administration before I believe there is anything he will ever do to get in Vladimir Putin's way. I just don't believe it. Whoops, sorry. Mike Waltz. Apparently it's the last waltz for Mike. Old Mike is out as National Security Advisor. Marco Rubio is being set up for failure by having to take both jobs now. Let's remember, National Security Advisors for Donald Trump are notoriously short-lived. Mike Waltz's 101 days isn't even close to General Mike Milley's 22 days as Trump's first National Security Advisor. Now, everybody is saying, Peter, it's not, they're just putting him out to pasture. They're giving him a cushy job as ambassador to the UN, but he's not really fired for adding the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic to a signal chat in which battle plans were shared. I don't know about that. Donald Trump is as bad as Vladimir Putin, and he's taking all of his cues from how Putin does things. If Putin needs to get rid of somebody, he doesn't always get rid of him himself, but rather he turns it over to some legislative body to do it. He has to be confirmed as ambassador to the UN. Are there enough Republicans, and it won't take many, because the Republican majority in the Senate is so slim, are there enough Republicans who see him as the national security hole that he is to reject his nomination as ambassador to the UN? Or is Trump quietly telling just enough of them to vote against him so that he doesn't have to deal with Mike Waltz again? I don't know. We'll see what happens in the Senate. But I'll tell you something. If he doesn't get through the Senate, I absolutely believe the whole thing was staged by Donald Trump so he could blame somebody else. As far as Marco Rubio goes, again, I think he's being set up for failure. Part of that may have to do with this announcement that was in Russian state broadcaster Zvezda yesterday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio might be a guest at the Russian Victory Day parade next week. Now, hopefully, what this news story that the Russians have planted really is bullshit just to test the waters. Would Americans object to an official representative of the federal government in attendance at the rah-rah rally of the genocidal lunatic who has plunged Europe into war? Do you think we'll object enough, make enough noise that it looks bad for us to be glad-handing this murderous psychopath who is running amok in Europe? Let's hope that's what it is. And let's hope there is enough of an outcry to be certain that no American official is there. Okay, let me play this here. This is the original Ukrainian. I think it's Ukrainian, might be Russian. And then this is the translation over here. This is what's happening in Crimea right now. An airfield and military unit under attack by UAVs. Explosions are reported in the area of ammunition depots. And then this was reported anonymously to the Ukrainian partisan channel Crimean Wind. Now, there's a little better video, too, also from Crimea Wind. And what it looks like, there's no good video. Such a Mimos over on YouTube has a better video, but I could not find it. I mean, I went through that guy's channel and not the original poster, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't know if he was forced to take it down or something happened, and such a Minimus got a hands on it first. But he's got a great video. It's still nighttime. You see one drone come in. It looks like it's here at Saki Airfield. And you hear the drone explosion, and then you hear the secondary explosions and cook-off. Large explosions. Looks like it was an ammo depot or air defense. Could have been a SAM system. You see some of the rockets spiraling off the cook-off, right? And then you hear the fireworks of small arms ammunition. Just case after case of it. So it looks like a big strike on an ammo depot at the Saki Air Base last night, though we're awaiting confirmation from Ukrainian, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. There are over 300 Ukrainians in custody for collaboration with the enemy. And the history here is tough. Loyalties are divided and people are extremely poor. If the Russians offer you $15,000, that will change your life as a Ukrainian. Some Ukrainians have been recruited, like the suicide bomber kids. These were Ukrainians that were recruited and told to put improvised explosive devices at recruitment centers for $2,000 each. The only thing was their FSB handlers blew the devices up, killing everyone who delivered them. I think one person survived. One young man survived. And never paid anybody anything, because that's how the FSB works. So these 300 Ukrainians that are in Russian captivity think they're oligarchs. They think Russia's going to want them. So they want to be exchanged for Ukrainians that are in captivity, suffering horribly, I cannot even imagine, under the gentle mercies of the Russians. Only the Russians don't want them. Of course they don't want them. They're a bunch of traitors. Who wants them? Nobody wants them. That's it. Your fate is sealed. If only we could get that in our heads about the maggots in the United States, who are so clearly advocating for the overthrow of the legitimate democratic government. And they've installed somebody, a foreign agent, to do it. So these traitors are not wanted by the Russians, and they're not going anywhere. Now, this is the guy I thought you might be interested in seeing. This is the actual video of Sternenko, the assassination attempt against him. So in just a second, they come out of the building with the security. The car is waiting for them there. The woman there picks up a gun. Security immediately puts her on the ground, and that's it. She's detained. Now, again, I want to highlight the guy's response to this because I think it's so great. I was attacked, wounded. Everything is okay. It's no threat to my life. Russians are fuckers. I love the Ukrainians so much sometimes. I thought it was great. Okay. Now, last night, some good news to finish it out with. Last night on the live, somebody mentioned the Boneyard down in the American desert Southwest where they keep all the old American planes. And that a bunch of wrapped F-16s were put on this Antonov 124 cargo plane for shipment to Poland and then to Ukraine. And that is where they are headed. But they are for spare parts. They're dead F-16s. They're not new F-16s. They're never going to fly again. They got no tails. They got no engines. They got no wings. Many of the components have been stripped out of them. Anything classified, top secret, or experimental has all been removed. And so they're airframes that may offer valuable, precision-engineered spare parts to the Ukrainian Air Force, who is undoubtedly going to need them at the rate that they are using the planes. So it's good news. All right, guys, again, if you pay with Apple Pay, please stop. The Apple takes 30% of everything you give, plus they make me wait 75 days to get it. So if you can, please change from Apple Pay to anything else. And that's it for me today. And I will see you all tonight on the live. Thanks.